A man of 60 sits in a small room inside the Temple of Babylon. To his left, clay tablets covered in cuneiform. To his right, a blank scroll of Greek papyrus. His reed pen hangs over nothing. He is about to commit a small act of disloyalty. It will save his civilization. A boy of 14 in a sunlit room inside the great temple of Babylon presses a reed stylus into wet clay. He is copying a king list that is already 18 centuries older than he is. The wedge-shaped marks he is learning have been made in this same room, in this same way, for nearly 3,000 years. A small clay tablet lying in a wicker basket in a temple at Uruk, 90 kilometers south of Babylon. The scribe who pressed the last wedge into it has just walked out of the room. He did not know it was the last. The year is 75 AD. After this tablet, no one will write cuneiform again. A system of writing that lasted 3,000 years ends in a wicker basket in a half-empty temple, and no one notices. A monastery in Highland Armenia, the 5th century after the death of Christ. By candlelight, an anonymous monk copies a passage of Greek prose into a script that was invented only 100 years earlier. The passage describes a flood and 10 kings and a man who buried tablets in the ground before the water came. The monk does not know whose words he is preserving. He has never heard the name Babylon spoken aloud. Between the boy and the monk lies the story of how a civilization survives its own death. Babylon was not preserved by an empire. It was not preserved by a temple. It was preserved by one man in his 60s who looked at his own sacred language and concluded that it was dying, and who decided to write the memory of his people in the language of the people who had recently conquered them. Why Greek? Why him? And how did 3 scrolls dedicated to a Macedonian king become almost everything we know about Babylon today? 23 centuries later? This is the story of Berossus, Bel-Reushunu in his own tongue, priest of Marduk, administrator of the temple Esagila, the man who chose the wrong language and who was right. A fisherman is pulling a wet linen net out of the Euphrates. The reeds of his low boat shift under his weight. The net comes up heavy with river mud and a few small silver fish, and the cold of the water that has been moving past this bank for 10,000 years. Behind him, on the eastern shore, the brick walls of Babylon. Above the walls, the stepped silhouette of a ziggurat, catching the first pink of dawn. Somewhere inside the city, drums begin. The morning ritual at the Temple of Marduk has started. The fisherman does not look up. He has heard those drums every morning of his life, and every morning of his father's life, and every morning of his grandfather's. The year is around 320 BC, give or take a decade. Alexander the Macedonian has been dead for 3 years. The empire that conquered Babylon 11 years ago in October of 331 is already cracking apart. The fisherman does not know this in any detailed sense. He knows there are new soldiers in the city with strange helmets and a strange language, and that they pay for fish in coins instead of barley. He knows that the priests still go to the temple before sunrise. He knows that the river is the same river. This is what Babylon is at this moment in its long life, a city that has stood here, on this bend of the Euphrates, since around 1894 BC, 19 centuries already, by the time of the fishermen. Older, when our story begins, than the Cathedral of Notre Dame is today. Cuneiform writing, the script of clay and reed, is even older. It has been continuously practiced on this plane for almost 3,000 years. It is the longest-lived writing system in the history of our species. The fisherman finishes pulling in his net. He empties it into a wicker basket. He pushes his boat back into the current. The sun rises a little higher. The drums continue. The plain between the two rivers is the oldest place in the world where cities were invented. And it is about to enter the last act of its long life. A boy of 13 sits cross-legged on a reed mat in a small room of the Seleucia temple. In his left hand, a fresh square of damp clay, the weight of 2 apples. In his right hand, a reed stylus, the end cut to a sharp, triangular tip. The mid-morning light comes in through a slit in the ceiling and falls in a long stripe across his lap. An older priest sits beside him. The priest points with his finger at a sign on a dry model tablet between them. The boy looks at the sign, presses his stylus into his own clay, and makes the first wedge of his first independent line. The sound is small, a short dry tap, then another, then another. The sign he is making is TES, part of a word for to gather. It will be one of about 600 signs he must learn before he can be called a scribe. This room has had a boy in it almost every morning for 1900 years. The Seleucia is more than a temple, it is an archive. Behind the walls of this small classroom stretches the temple library, a sequence of rooms whose floors are stacked with sealed clay tablets arranged by genre. Astronomy here, medicine there, royal correspondence, divination, ritual instruction, mythology, mathematics. Some of the tablets in this library are 1,600 years old. The priests who maintain them can still read them. Cuneiform has been written continuously on this plane since around 3,200 BC. It is older than the pyramids, older than the alphabet, older than the wheel-driven plow. It was already 1,000 years old when Abraham, in another tradition, is said to have left Ur. By the time this boy of 13 is learning his first signs, cuneiform has been in continuous use longer than Latin has been a language at the moment you are watching this video. And the boy does not know it, because no one in this room knows it. But cuneiform has perhaps 350 years left. He presses another wedge into the clay. Outside, the drums of the morning service have stopped. The sun climbs. A senior priest of the Seleucia stands on the outer steps of the temple holding a shallow silver bowl with both hands. In the bowl, barley and olive oil. The bowl is heavier than it looks. He has been told not to let it tremble. It is the afternoon of a day in late October, 331 BC. The Macedonian army has been visible from the city walls since morning. Now its head is coming up the processional way. Bronze helmets in formation, horizontal spears, sandals striking the paving stones in unison. The priest watches them approach. Behind him, the blue-glazed bricks of the Ishtar Gate catch the low autumn sun. The bricks are nearly 40 years old. Some of them still bear the dust of the workmen who set them. Inside the city, in courtyards he cannot see from here, other priests are waiting at other shrines. Outside the city, the Persian satrap Mazias has already opened the gates. There will be no siege. There will be no battle. Babylon has decided to receive its conqueror. The first horseman comes into view at the foot of the stairs. He is about 25 years old, short, sunburnt, dark-haired. He has been on campaign for 3 years and looks like it. His name is Alexander, son of Philip, of the house of Argead, king of the Macedonians, king of Asia, soon to be king of Babylon. The priest descends 3 steps. He offers the bowl. Alexander reaches out and accepts it. He does not eat. He hands it to a soldier behind him, who hands it to another, who carries it away. The gesture has been performed. That same evening, inside the Esagila, Alexander performs the formal sacrifice to Marduk. He is following the protocol of every conqueror of Babylon for the past 1,000 years. He has been advised carefully. He is 25. He is acquiring an empire. He is also, without knowing it, beginning a process that will, within 2 centuries, hollow out the city that just opened its gates to him. The drums in the temple sound again. The priest folds his empty hands. The Macedonians are inside. A Shangu priest stands alone in the inner sanctuary of the Esagila. It is 2 hours before dawn on the 4th day of the month Nisanu, the New Year festival of Akitu, the first week of April. He is 40 years old. He has done this only twice before in his life. In his arms, a clay tablet, the weight of a small child. On the tablet, the complete text of the Enuma Elish, the Babylonian poem of creation, in 1,100 lines of cuneiform. He will recite all of it, alone, from memory, before the morning star rises. In front of him, the statue of Marduk, covered in white linen. 4 oil lamps burn at the 4 cardinal points. The smell is sesame, slow and sweet. The temple is silent. He breathes in once. He begins. Enuma Elish Lanabu Shamamu. When on high, the heavens had not yet been named. He recites for 90 minutes. The poem tells how Marduk killed Tiamat, the saltwater chaos, and split her body to make the sky and the earth. How he ordered the stars and set the months in their courses. How he molded humankind from clay mixed with the blood of a god. This recitation is not symbolic. In Babylonian theology, the world is held in place each year by this performance. If the poem is not recited correctly on the 4th of Nisanu, the world will not be renewed. The rivers will not rise. The harvest will not come. The priest finishes before the morning star. He has not missed a line. Outside, the city is waking. The festival will continue for 11 more days. The king himself will come into the inner sanctuary and be struck on the cheek by the high priest to remind him that he is not divine. Marduk will be carried out of his shrine to receive the homage of the lesser gods. This festival has been celebrated in this temple on this date by priests doing this work for somewhere between 1,000 and 1,700 years. It will be celebrated for perhaps 200 more. An astronomer scribe stands on the flat roof of the Esagila, his head tilted back. The night air is cold enough to make his breath visible. It is around the year 312 BC, late autumn. He has a wool cloak over his linen tunic, and the cloak is not quite enough. In his left hand, a wet clay tablet, palm-sized, the edges still soft. In his right, a reed stylus. Beside him, on a low brick, a small oil lamp shielded with a cloth so it does not ruin his night vision. He is watching Jupiter. The planet has been moving toward the bright star at the Horn of Taurus for several nights. Tonight, he judges it has come within 1 finger's width. He looks down at his tablet, presses the stylus into the clay, and records what he has seen. Month 8, day 14. Jupiter was 1 cubit above Alpha Tauri. The weather was clear. The wind was from the south. Then, in the next line, he records the price of barley in the market that day, and the height of the Euphrates, and whether anything unusual happened, a fire, a birth in the royal family, a sickness reported among the cattle. This is one of the most extraordinary documents in the history of human science. The Babylonian astronomical diaries are a single continuous series of nightly observations stretching from around 652 BC to 61 BC. Almost 600 years, almost every clear night, the same temple, the same notation, generation after generation, families of scribes whose names appear in the colophons. From these observations, the astronomers of Esagila have already discovered something European astronomy will not match until the 18th century. They have noticed that lunar eclipses repeat in a cycle of 18 years and 11 days. They call it the Saros. They can predict eclipses. This man on the roof, anonymous to us, is a working scientist in a tradition 6 centuries old. Behind a wall of the temple, 2 rooms over from where he is standing right now, a boy of about 20 is studying the same diaries. His name is Bel Shunu. He is 20 years old. He has not yet written anything that will matter. The young man is sitting on a stone bench in an outer courtyard of the Esagila. The late afternoon sun has been warming the bench for hours, and through the back of his thighs he can feel the heat coming up from the stone. In his lap, a school tablet copy of the Sumerian king list. He is reading it slowly, mouthing the syllables in Akkadian, which is his second language. Sumerian, which is the language of the list itself, has not been spoken by anyone in 2,000 years. Across the courtyard, on a wooden table, set up under a canvas awning, a Macedonian administrator is dictating instructions in Greek. An Aramaic-speaking scribe writes them down on parchment in Aramaic. 2 languages of empire, neither of them his. His name is Bel Shunu. In Akkadian it means Bel is their shepherd. He was born around 335 BC into a hereditary priestly family of the Esagila. He is now about 20. He can read 3 languages, Akkadian, which the priests speak among themselves and in the rituals, Sumerian, which has been dead as a spoken language for 2 millennia, but which every Esagila apprentice must learn because the oldest texts in the library are written in it, and Aramaic, which the people in the city streets speak, and which his mother spoke to him as a child. He cannot speak Greek. Almost no one in this temple can. Greek arrived in this city 11 years before he was born, and it has stayed in the administrative palaces and the army barracks. It has not entered the temple. He looks down at the king list. The dynasties stretch back into the millennia before the flood. Reigns of 10,000 years, 20,000 years. The numbers are not literal. They are a way of saying, we have been here forever. He closes the tablet. The Greek voice across the courtyard continues. The stylus of the Aramaic scribe scrapes on parchment. The young priest does not yet know that the future of his civilization depends on which of these 3 sounds, clay, parchment, or his own quiet voice, he will eventually choose to write in. A palace servant is crossing the inner courtyard of the palace of Nebuchadnezzar with a clay jar of water against his right hip. The jar has been cooled in a deep well. It is heavy. He has carried jars like this every afternoon of his working life. It is June 13th, 323 BC. The Mesopotamian summer has begun. The courtyard tiles are too hot to walk on barefoot. He keeps to the strip of shade along the wall. He is taking the water to the western wing of the palace, where the Macedonian king has been ill for nearly 2 weeks. The doctors have stopped speaking in the corridors. The servant reaches the corner where the western corridor begins, and he stops. The corridor is empty. For 2 weeks there have been Macedonian guards at this corner, 2 of them, sometimes 4, with horizontal spears. Today there are no guards, there are no officers. The doors at the far end of the corridor are open. The servant stands at the threshold with the cold jar against his hip. He listens. There is no sound from the western wing, no voices, no orders. From somewhere very far away, in the stables on the eastern side of the palace, a single horse exhales. He understands before he has put it into words. Alexander the Macedonian is dead. He is 32 years old. He has been in Babylon, in this palace, for less than a year. He had been planning to make this city the capital of the world he had conquered. Instead, this is the city in which he stops. His body will not stay here. Within a year, Ptolemy will intercept the funeral procession and carry the corpse to Egypt. The capital of the world will be moved by a different general to a different city, 90 kilometers north. The empire will split into pieces, and the pieces will fight each other for 40 years. The Babylonian astronomical diary. For that month records what happened in a single line, written by an astronomer who probably did not know the king personally and who was busy with other observations. Month 2, day 29. The king died. The clouds. The rest of the tablet is broken. An elderly priestess stands on the roof of the Esagila in the cold light of a winter midday. She is 65 years old. She has lived in this temple since she was 9. She is leaning against the low parapet of fired brick. The wind is cold enough to slip in at the neck of her wool robe. Below her, to the north, the road out of Babylon runs straight across the floodplain toward the horizon. On the road, a caravan is moving away from the city. 20 wagons, perhaps, families, furniture stacked under canvas, bundles of household goods, some merchants, a cart with children. She has watched this image dozens of times in the last 15 years. 90 kilometers to the north, at a sharp bend on the Tigris, a new city has been growing since around 305 BC. Its name is Seleucia. It was founded by Seleucus, the general who took Babylonia in the wars after Alexander, as the new capital of the eastern half of the broken empire. It is bigger every year. The palace is finished. The grid of streets is laid out in the Greek style. The market is the largest in Mesopotamia. It is also, deliberately, a replacement. The Seleucid kings have not destroyed Babylon. They have done something more efficient. They have left the temple standing and the rituals running and the priests in place, and they have moved everything else away. The administrators, the merchants, the garrisons, the mints, the granaries. They have offered tax incentives. They have offered new houses. They have offered work for the artisans. Babylon is being emptied while remaining open. The priestess watches the caravan disappear behind a low rise in the road. She has known 3 of the families. One of them is a family of scribes, a younger son who could not find enough work copying tablets in Babylon, who has been offered a position copying Greek and Aramaic documents in Seleucia. She turns and walks back down the stairs. Inside the temple, the afternoon ritual is beginning. The drums sound. The chant begins. From this rooftop, from any rooftop in the city, you can hear that the city is quieter than it was last year. Antiochus is standing barefoot on a layer of bitumen-coated brick at the bottom of an open foundation pit. He is 56 years old. In his hands, a wet clay cylinder the size of a forearm. The clay is heavier than it looks. He has been told not to drop it. It is March 27th, 268 BC. The construction site is the foundation of the temple Esida in Borsippa, 20 kilometers south of Babylon. He has come here personally for this ceremony. He could have sent a deputy. He did not. The cylinder he is holding is inscribed in his name in archaizing cuneiform Akkadian. The letters are deliberately old-fashioned. imitating the style of Nabopolassar, the Neo-Babylonian king who lived 4 centuries ago. The text begins, Antiochus, the great king, the legitimate king, the king of the world, king of Babylon, king of all countries, the caretaker of the temples Esagila and Azida, the first son of King Seleucus, the Macedonian, king of Babylon, am I. He lowers the cylinder into the foundation. He covers it with a brick. He stands up. Around him, Babylonian priests in white linen robes are chanting in Akkadian. They are using the formula their predecessors used for Nabopolassar in this same temple 400 years ago. Behind the priests in disciplined ranks stand Macedonian soldiers who do not understand a single word of what is being said. Antiochus understands every word. He was born in Babylon in 324 BC. His father Seleucus had taken a Persian wife, Apama of Sogdiana. Antiochus grew up in this country. He has never seen Macedonia. He speaks Greek, Persian, and enough Akkadian to follow the priests. He is half Babylonian by blood and entirely Babylonian by upbringing. This is the window in time that makes everything else possible. A king on the throne who will, 2 years from now, accept the dedication of a book written in Greek about Babylonian history. A book by a priest of the Esagila, who is, at this moment, 20 kilometers north of here, working in his study. Berossus is 58 years old. He is 2 years away from finishing. He made the decision that started this work years ago, in a small room of the Esagila on a winter afternoon. The decision is the one part of the book that will not appear in the book. This video is about a man who, in 285 BC, makes a silent decision in a room, not on a battlefield, not in a throne room, in a small study inside a temple with a stylus in one hand and a pen in the other. We have seen what he is choosing between: a writing system 3,000 years old, with a library behind it, with priests trained from childhood to maintain it, and a teacher's voice in his memory, saying the world is held in place by the recitation of the right words in the right language. And we have seen the city around it beginning to empty, the Macedonian conqueror dead in the palace, the new capital 90 kilometers to the north, the Greek-speaking king who deposits cuneiform cylinders in temple foundations because he understands what the priests want and gives it to them performatively while the city around them empties. We have not yet seen the decision itself. The decision happens in 285 BC. Berossus is 55 years old. He has been a priest of the Esagila for 40 years. He will live for another 35 years. But the decision he makes on this winter afternoon is the one that matters. Watch the man in the small room. We are about to meet him again. A man of 55 sits at a low cedar table in a small room inside the Esagila. The window in the western wall is open to a winter afternoon. The light coming through it is yellow and almost horizontal, lying flat across the table and the objects on it. To his left, 6 clay tablets stacked in 2 short piles, 3 royal genealogies, 2 copies of the Sumerian king list, 1 school copy of the Enuma Elish. The tablets are the work of his own hand and of the hands of priests who taught him and of priests who taught them. To his right, a blank scroll of Egyptian papyrus unrolled across about a hand's width of the table. Beside it, a small clay pot of ink. Above the ink in his right hand, a reed pen cut in the Greek style, a calamus. He learned to hold it as an adult, not as a child. There is a small tremor in his fingers. He is aware of the tremor. He has been sitting like this for several minutes. He has not written in cuneiform. He has not written in Greek. He has not written anything. He is 55 years old. He has been a priest of this temple for 40 years. He knows what he is about to do. He has read the new tablets coming into the library. He has noticed that the apprentices now arriving in the scribal school cannot read the older Sumerian texts without help. He has noticed that the families who used to sponsor astronomical observations have been moving to Seleucia. He has noticed that two of the smaller temples in towns he visited as a younger man no longer have a working cuneiform scribe at all. He has noticed that the king on the Seleucid throne, born here in Babylon, is interested in patronage of works in Greek, and that the door is open for a few more years, perhaps a generation, before another king closes it. He has been a priest long enough to know what dying looks like in an institution. He has watched it begin. The choice in front of him is simple to describe and terrible to make. He can continue the tradition in cuneiform, which is the language of his priesthood, his fathers, and the gods of this city, and which is in slow death. Or he can write in Greek, which is the language of the men who conquered his country 11 years before he was born, and which is vast enough to last. Greek will outlive cuneiform. He has understood this for several years. He has not until this afternoon admitted it as the basis of an action. He dips the calamus in the ink. He moves it above the papyrus. He stops once more. Then he writes in clean Greek letters the first word. Babyloniaka, Babyloniaka, Babylonian things. The choice is made. He continues to the second word. Berossus stands at a long table covered in clay tablets. He is 58 years old. It is the spring of 283 BC. He has been at this work for almost 7 years. The tablets on the table are organized by dynasty in small stacks marked with numbered clay chips. To his right, 3 papyrus scrolls partially written. Book 1 almost finished. Book 2 in progress. Book 3 still in rough draft. He is leaning over Book 2, comparing a passage he has just written in Greek against a cuneiform tablet held flat in his left hand. A younger man sits at a low stool beside the table. He is an apprentice. His role is to read aloud in Akkadian from the source tablet while Berossus checks his Greek version against the original. The apprentice reads. Berossus listens. Sometimes Berossus stops him and goes back to the papyrus and crosses out a word and writes another above the line. This is what the work actually looks like. Not inspiration. 2 men in a room comparing one sentence in 2 languages for hours. Berossus is not copying. He is translating, condensing, adapting. He has the entire library of the Esagila to draw from, 1,500 years of cuneiform literature in stacks behind him. From this, he must select what a Greek-speaking audience can understand, and what a Babylonian audience must not see lost. He must turn Tiamat, the saltwater chaos who became the dome of the sky, into a name a Macedonian general can read without footnotes. The 3 books cover, between them, more than 2,000 years. Book 1, Cosmology, and the fish sage Oannes, who rose from the Persian Gulf and taught humans writing, agriculture, geometry, law. Book 2, The 10 Kings Before the Flood, whose reigns total 432,000 years, and the story of Xisuthros and the flood. Book 3, From Sargon of Akkad through Hammurabi, the Assyrians, the Neo-Babylonian dynasty, Cyrus, the Achaemenids, Alexander, and the Seleucids. The apprentice reads on. The light moves across the table. The papyrus fills with letters no priest of the Esagila has ever before written in this room. Berossus is bent over Book 2. The light in his study has shifted to mid-afternoon. He is writing the passage about the flood. His pen moves slowly. The words are in Greek, but the story they tell is older than Greek by 2,000 years. Kronos, he writes, using the Greek name for the Babylonian god Ea, appeared to Xisuthros in a dream and revealed that on the 15th day of the month, Diaries, mankind would be destroyed by a great flood. He commanded him to bury the beginnings, the middles, and the ends of all writings in Sippar, the city of the sun. Then to build a boat and embark with his kinsmen and dearest friends. As Berossus writes, the room around him dissolves. We are now in Sippar, somewhere in the deep past of myth. A man stands in the inner courtyard of a temple. He is holding a fired clay tablet. The ground in front of him has been opened, a shallow pit dug into the brick floor. This is Xisuthros. In Akkadian, he is Utnapishtim. In Sumerian, he is Ziusudra. In the much later Hebrew tradition, he will be Noah. The flood myth is shared across all of Mesopotamia and beyond, and Xisuthros is the version that the Cuneiform tradition preserved earliest and most fully. Xisuthros kneels at the edge of the pit. He places the tablet at the bottom. He places another tablet beside it, and another. The tablets contain everything humans have learned, the beginnings, the middles, and the ends of all writings. He covers them with earth. Then he goes to build the boat. The scene fades. Berossus is at his table again. He continues to write. The flood comes. The boat survives. Xisuthros sends out birds to test for dry land. After the water recedes, he returns to Sippar with his family, and they dig up the buried tablets, and they begin civilization again from what was preserved. Berossus writes the next sentence. The afternoon light continues to move across his table. He does not pause. He does not mark the passage as different from any other. He writes it as if he is recording something that happened to someone else. Berossus dies around 250 BC. He is approximately 90 years old. There is no scene. There is a desk in a small room with 3 completed scrolls placed in a cedar box, and a stool beside the desk that is no longer being used. The window is open to the same winter light. There is nothing else to say about his death. He finished what he had set out to do. The scribes of the Esagila continue without him for 2 more centuries, 1 generation. Their stylus strokes are quick, confident. They number in the dozens. The astronomical diaries continue every night. The Akitu festival continues every spring. The library is maintained. A 2nd generation. The stylus strokes are still confident, but the scribes are fewer. The Parthians have taken Babylonia from the Seleucids in 141 BC. The temple is given less by the new king than by the old one. Some rooms of the library are no longer being copied. A 3rd generation. The strokes are slower. There are perhaps a dozen working cuneiform scribes left in Babylon, and not all of them can read Sumerian. The astronomical diaries are still being kept, just barely. The last datable Babylonian diary tablet is from 61 BC. Then nothing in Babylon. The work passes south to Uruk, where the temple Bitresh still has a small school of cuneiform astronomers. They continue. The temple is now within the Parthian Empire and then within the Sasanian Empire that follows it. The number of scribes in Uruk falls from dozens to a handful. In the year 75 AD, on a winter morning in Uruk, an anonymous scribe sits in a small room. He is the last working cuneiform astronomer in the world. He is not aware of this. He is finishing an almanac for the coming year, a calculation of planetary positions and lunar visibilities, the kind of document his family has been producing for 3 centuries. He presses the final signs into a small tablet. He sets the stylus down. He places the tablet in a wicker basket beside the door. He leaves the room. That tablet is W22340A. It is now in the Vorderasiatisches Museum in Berlin. It is the last cuneiform document anyone has ever found that can be dated. After it, the silence is complete. Babylon itself empties out across the next 6 centuries. The Parthian and Sasanian rulers care nothing for the city. By 300 AD, it is mostly abandoned. By 500 AD, it is a field of broken brick. In 762 AD, a new caliph begins to build a new capital 70 kilometers north, on the Tigris, and his workmen come to Babylon to carry away its baked bricks for foundations. The city of Hammurabi and Nebuchadnezzar and Berossus is now a quarry for Baghdad. The cuneiform script is forgotten. The Akkadian language is forgotten. The story of the city is forgotten. Medieval Arab travelers ride past the mound and do not know its name. By the year 1500, no one alive on Earth can read a single line of cuneiform. The libraries of the Esagila lie under 30 feet of earth. The original scrolls of Berossus, which were stored in libraries around the Mediterranean for some centuries, have been lost. The last complete copy circulated somewhere or sometime, perhaps in late antiquity, and then it too was gone. Babylon disappeared. Cuneiform died. Berossus's book vanished. Everything was lost. Go back to a spring afternoon in around 278 BC. We are in the audience hall of the Seleucid king in Seleucia on the Tigris, 90 kilometers north of Babylon. The hall has a floor of white marble and columns in the Macedonian style. Between the columns, Babylonian tapestries. Antiochus has been on the throne for 3 years. Berossus walks the length of the hall toward the throne. He is 62 years old. He wears the ceremonial robes of a senior priest of the Esagila. Against his chest, he carries 3 papyrus scrolls tied with blue cord. Book 1, Book 2, Book 3. He stops 3 paces from the throne. He bows. He offers the scrolls. Antiochus accepts them. He loosens the blue cord on the first scroll. He reads the first word, Babyloniaca. That sound is what the rest of this video has been waiting for. Watch what happens to it across the next 23 centuries. Around 50 BC in Rome, a freed slave from Miletus named Alexander Polyhistor, made a citizen by Sulla, sits at a desk on the Palatine. He has a Greek copy of Berossus open in front of him. He is compiling a work called On the Chaldeans. He copies Berossus into it. His villa will burn within years, and he will not survive the fire, and his wife will not survive the news, but his book will. Around 93 AD, in Rome again, the historian Josephus is at a desk. He has a copy of Polyhistor, which has Berossus inside it. He copies a passage about Nebuchadnezzar into his Jewish antiquities. Around 310 AD in Caesarea, Eusebius is compiling his chronicle. He has Polyhistor. He copies the 10 kings before the flood into his chronology of the world. In the 5th century, in Vaharshapat in Highland Armenia, anonymous monks translate Eusebius into Armenian. The Armenian script was invented only a century earlier. The monks do not know they are saving Berossus. The Greek original of Eusebius will be lost in parts. The Armenian translation will preserve what is lost. Around 810 AD in Constantinople, the monk George Syncellus is compiling a chronicle. He has a Greek copy of Polyhistor. He copies the flood, with Xisuthros burying the tablets, into his own work. In 1606, in Leiden, the scholar Joseph Justus Scaliger publishes Thesaurus Temporum. He has gathered every surviving fragment of Berossus from all of these sources. He puts them in one volume. Berossus is readable again for the first time in perhaps 15 centuries. 6 hands, each held the text, each passed it on. Berossus made his choice in a small room of the Esagila on a winter afternoon in 285 BC. He had a stylus on his left and a calamus on his right, and clay on his left and papyrus on his right, and a writing system 3,000 years old on his left, and a writing system 500 years old on his right. He chose the younger one. He chose the one that did not belong to him. He chose, in the language of his priesthood, a small act of disloyalty. The disloyalty saved everything else. If Berossus had written in cuneiform, his work would lie today, unreadable for 1,500 years, under 30 feet of earth, somewhere in the southern Iraqi plain. He would be a name on a colophon. He would have been faithful to his language and lost to history. Instead, he wrote in the language that would survive him, and his book moved through 6 pairs of hands, in 4 religions, on 3 continents, and across 23 centuries, until it reached us. 6 centuries after Berossus, in the highlands of Armenia, a man named Mesrop Mashtats faced the same question and answered it the opposite way. Faced with the loss of his own civilization to languages of empire, he did not adopt Greek. He invented a new alphabet, and Armenian literature wrote itself into existence. 2 carriers, 2 opposite gestures, both correct. The thread is sometimes saved by walking into the foreign language, and sometimes by building a fence around the home one. Now look back at the second of Berossus's 3 books. Look at the passage where Xisuthros, in a dream, is told the flood is coming. The god commands him to bury the tablets, the beginnings, the middles, and the ends of all writings, in Sippar, the city of the sun, to preserve them so that civilization can be rebuilt from what was buried. Berossus wrote this. He understood it from the inside. He did not bury tablets. He translated them. He took the beginnings, the middles, and the ends of all the writings of his civilization, and he put them not in the ground, but in another language. The flood he saw coming was not water, it was forgetting. The container he buried them in was Greek prose. He hid his civilization where the water would not reach. He never said this. He wrote a book about the flood with Xisuthros burying tablets, and let the readers notice or not notice. Most readers did not notice. For 23 centuries, no one named the recursion, and then, in the 19th century, the language he had left behind began to come back. Scholars in London, Paris, and Berlin learned to read cuneiform again, sign by sign. In 1872, in the British Museum, a man assembled a broken tablet that contained a flood story almost identical to the one Berossus had described in Book 2. The cuneiform channel and the Greek channel, both running in parallel for 23 centuries, finally touched. Today, in a glass case in a museum, you can sometimes see them placed next to each other, a fragment of a Greek manuscript containing Berossus's flood passage, a clay tablet of the 11th tablet of Gilgamesh, same flood, same hero under different names, same buried tablets. The two channels reach each other across 2,300 years, and a visitor passes the case and reads the label and walks on and does not know that the thread has just touched his shoulder. Bel Re Ushunu. Bel is their shepherd, the name his mother gave him, the name he wrote in cuneiform every day of his working life until the afternoon he decided to write in another language instead. This is how a civilization survives, not by holding on, by letting go of the right things at the right moment. This video is part of a series about the people who carried civilizations across time. The next civilization is being prepared. In a Mediterranean villa, 25 years after a catastrophe almost no one survived to describe, a man in his 40s sits down at a writing table to compose a letter to a friend. The letter is short. He has not written about that day before, although he has thought about it for a quarter of a century. He had been 17 years old when it happened. He had been across a bay from a mountain that began to shake. He saw what came next. He never wrote it down. He is about to. The friend he is writing to is a historian. The letter will be copied. It will be read for 2,000 years. The mountain has not yet been named in our story. Neither has the city it destroyed. Neither has the man who wrote the letter, nor the friend he wrote to. All four names are familiar to you. We will arrive at them in the next video. If you want to be there when the thread reaches the morning of August 24th in the year 79, subscribe. Every empire ends. The thread does not.